What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL video, and in this video, I will be giving you a full preview of the 2019 NFL season, including my record predictions, my playoff predictions, and ultimately who I believe will win Super Bowl 54. Before I get into my full season-long predictions for the 2019 NFL season, Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL videos and predictions just like this, and comment below your predictions. I want to hear what records you have for each and every team in the NFL. Who do you have representing the NFC in the Super Bowl? Who do you have representing the AFC in the Super Bowl? If you want to break down your own playoff bracket, leave it in the comment section below. Let's kick off the NFL record predictions for the 2019 season with the defending Super Bowl champions and the AFC East. The Patriots, I have once again winning the AFC East with a 13-3 record, which I believe will be good enough to be number one seed in the AFC and have home field throughout the playoffs. The Patriots, I believe, have more targets, better targets around Tom Brady offensively with a elite offensive line. Sony Michel in his second season, who's going to be more involved as a receiver. And then defensively, they're led by arguably the best secondary in all of football and should be improved on that side of the ball as well. So the Patriots are going to be great once again in 2019. But it's behind the Patriots or below the Patriots, which is where it gets interesting. The New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills. I think that's going to be the fight for second place. And to me, I'm giving the edge to the Buffalo Bills. I have the Bills at 8-8, while I have the New York Jets at 7-9. I'm slightly more of a Josh Allen fan than I am a Sam Darnold fan. Even though I do like both of these quarterbacks, I think they both have talent, and I think they'll both have really good seasons this year with their second year in the NFL. I look at the Bills, and I think they have a better defense, which can complement Josh Allen on the offensive side of the football. I also think that the Bills have had probably the most underrated offseason of any team in football with what they've done with their offensive line, with how they've surrounded Josh Allen with complementary receivers like Cole Beasley and John Brown. And again, I really like their defense. For the Jets, I like what they did with Le'Veon Bell and Jamison Crowder, and I think their offensive line will be better. I believe both of these teams will be significantly better than their 2018 version, but I don't see either of them quite making the playoffs. I could see them fighting for a playoff spot. I just don't quite have them in there as a wild card team. And the fourth place team in the AFC East is the Miami Dolphins. I think it's pretty clear. The Dolphins, to me, are the least talented team in all of football. I've said it many times. I think Brian Flores has a big mountain to climb this season, but I do believe he is the head coach for your team in the future. I'm not a big fan of Josh Rosen. I don't think Fitzpatrick is the guy. I think this is a rebuilding season for the Dolphins at 2-14. Ultimately, they'll be selecting first in the NFL draft. In the AFC North, I have the Cleveland Browns winning the division. I know that sounds crazy to longtime NFL fans, but Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham Jr., Myles Garrett, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb. This team is loaded with talent, especially offensively. I believe they'll probably have a top 5 offense in all of football. Odell should have a great season, his first season in Cleveland. I think the hype is real, and I am going with the Browns to win this division. So if the Cleveland Browns are winning the AFC North, that means that it's not going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's not going to be the Baltimore Ravens, but who is going to take that wild card spot? Because I believe that one of these teams is going to be able to make the playoffs. The AFC North is a very competitive division, and I think 2 teams within this division can make the playoffs. The other team I have sneaking into the playoffs is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that means that the Baltimore Ravens, a team that won the division last season, a team that made the playoffs last season, is not going to be making the playoffs. I have the Baltimore Ravens at 7-9, so they're going to be regressing quite a bit in 2019. And the reason why I believe the Baltimore Ravens are going to regress is because I don't quite believe in Lamar Jackson as a passer, as a quarterback in the NFL at this point. I do like the defense, don't get me wrong, but I don't see it being the best defense in the league after all the losses they've sustained throughout free agency. And I really like Harbaugh, so I can't disrespect him too much. That's why I have him at 7-9 and third place in the AFC North. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are too talented to miss the playoffs 2 years in a row. Ben Roethlisberger is going to be on a mission this year. No Antonio Brown, so the morale of this football team is a lot higher. There's no distractions. There's no drama. And I think Mike Tomlin will have this team playing and playing well. I also see the Steelers' defense being the best unit they've had in quite some time on that side of the football. So I'm a believer in the Steelers as an AFC wildcard team. And the last place team in the AFC North has to be the Cincinnati Bengals. It's not like they're not talented, because they certainly have talent, whether it's the injured AJ Green, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, defensively, Carlos Dunlap, Geno Atkins, William Jackson. They have talent pretty much everywhere on their roster. I don't like their offensive line. I don't love Andy Dalton at this point. And the coaching, it's uncertain. We don't know what to expect here. So I think this is a building year for the Bengals. They could be good in the next couple of seasons, but I just don't see it in 2019. In the AFC South, even despite the injury news with Andrew Luck, even despite the uncertainty, I still feel like the most predictable, the most reliable team in this division is the Indianapolis Colts. I believe if Andrew Luck is on the field, the Colts are the best team in this division, and it's pretty obvious to me. They added to their defense with Justin Houston. They're very young, they're hungry, they have great coaching. Their offense is a lot better from a skill position standpoint, and they already had one of the best offensive lines in football. So the Indianapolis Colts are one of these teams that I think is sort of a sexy pick. At least it was early in the offseason. Now with this Andrew Luck news, it has me a little bit sour on them. I have them at 10-6 as a safe prediction for their record, just in case Andrew Luck does miss like 4 to 6 games this season, which could very well happen. But I believe even if he's out for, let's say, a quarter of the season, Jacoby Brissett is good enough to pick up some victories for this football team, because it's a lot better now than when he had to play earlier in his career. And he's a lot better now, to be honest. Behind the Colts is where it gets really interesting in the AFC South. I have the Texans second, and this is strictly due to the respect I have for Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson is one of the bright young stars in football, one of the best young quarterbacks in the entire NFL. DeAndre Hopkins is awesome as well. Will Fuller, if he can stay healthy, he is a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't love their offensive line. I think their offensive line could be the worst in the entire league, and they did nothing to fix it. Deshaun Watson was taking a bus to games in 2018, and that could happen in 2019 if they don't fix their offensive line and if it doesn't get any better. Defensively, I think they're a little overrated. I think their secondary is not very good, and it showed against elite quarterbacks and good opponents and good offenses last season. I think the Texans also benefited in 2018 from a very weak schedule. That's not going to happen in 2019. They're going to have to play some tough opponents that I just don't see them winning these games against. I have them at 8-8, second in the AFC South, and missing the playoffs. Third in the AFC South, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jags are the team to me in the AFC that the ultimate X factor. If their defense is as good as it was in 2017, this team could be one of the best teams in the AFC, because just 2 years ago, I thought they were the most talented team in the entire NFL. Nick Foles is much better than Blake Bortles, and the biggest improvement you can have in the NFL is going from the worst quarterback to an average one, not even a great one. And Nick Foles is certainly at least average, and he could be good with John DeFilippo as the OC. Leonard Fournette, a lot relies on him, and if he can stay healthy and if he can be the true talent that he was drafted to be. So the Jags are an X factor in the AFC. I have them at 7-9, but that's very conservative. I could see them being a lot better. I could also see them being a lot worse, to be honest. And the last place team in the AFC South, I have the Tennessee Titans, which is surprising to me because I actually think from a talent perspective, from a roster construction perspective, the Titans are a better football team this year. Just look at what they did in the offseason. Roger Saffold on the offensive line. Defensively, defensively, they added Cam Wake. They had a pretty good draft. Some of their young players are getting better. Their defense is top 10 in the league. They added receivers like Adam Humphries to the mix. I just don't like Marcus Mariota or the quarterback position in general. And I think with Nick Foles coming in instead of Blake Bortles, that's not going to help the cause. I think the Titans having the worst quarterback in this division is going to ultimately be their demise. And even if I like Mike Vrabel, even if I like the defense, I just don't see it being enough against a tough schedule, the toughest they've had in a long time, and in a division that's so stacked. So the Titans, I have it 6-10, last in the AFC South. Then in the AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs will win this division, in my opinion. Patrick Mahomes is too good. He's coming in his second season as the MVP of the NFL, and I don't think he'll throw 50 touchdowns, but he should probably throw somewhere from 35 to 40 because he has basically the same offense minus Mitch Morse. Added a dynamic rookie receiver to the mix. Tyreek Hill is there. Travis Kelce is there. Andy Reid is a genius from an offensive perspective, and he's a great coach, and he always starts off hot in terms of the Chiefs are always great at the beginning of the year. The defense, though, concerns me, but it doesn't concern me enough until we get against elite teams in the playoffs. I think it will be better this season than it was last year because it can't be much worse, but the offense probably will take a slight step backward because they were at a historic pace last season. 12-4 for the Chiefs, second in the AFC. Second place in the AFC West will be the LA Chargers once again. I do have the Chargers, though, at 10-6, and this has mostly to do with the Melvin Gordon situation, Derwin James getting injured, and just the injuries surrounding this football team. I also don't believe they'll go 8-0 again on the road. So that being said, the Chargers, very talented team. I think this is a team that if they can just survive the regular season and do enough to make it there, they're a talented enough football team that if they put it all together, they can make a run towards a Super Bowl. And Phillip Rivers is still a monster. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams should have a big season. Their defense with Joey Bosa fully back and healthy for a full season should be great. And I love what they did in terms of their front seven, adding a ton of depth to it. I think it's going to pay off. I think the Chargers are still very good. I just think their regular season record won't be quite as good as it was last year. The third place team in the AFC West is between the Broncos and the Raiders. I have the edge going to the Broncos. I actually am gaining steam in terms of what I think about the Broncos this season. I believe the Broncos defense is going to be top 5 in football. And if they are, with Vic Fangio as the coach, which, by the way, huge coaching upgrade here, the defense is going to be phenomenal and can be good enough to win them games. The offense just has to be okay. They just can't screw it up. I could see the Broncos being 7-9 to 9-7. I could see them being maybe 6-10 at the worst. But when you look at this Broncos roster, I think it's pretty underrated. I like the signings they made on the offensive line. They've been building that unit for a couple of years now. Joe Flacco, I believe, is an upgrade over Case Keenum. Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman are a nice running back duo. Wide receivers are pretty solid, and I'm very happy that Emmanuel Sanders will be back on the football field. And again, defensively, phenomenal. Kareem Jackson, Bryce Callahan added to Chris Harris in the secondary, Von Miller, Chubb. It's just going to be an awesome, destructive defense. The Oakland Raiders are last for me here. I just don't see it working out. I think there's too many personalities here that are going to butt heads, and they're playing the most difficult schedule in the entire league. Antonio Brown is going to have a good season, I believe, individually, but it might not pay off for the team. Derek Carr, I'm not sure about him at this point. I think Josh Jacobs will have a nice season. I think their offense overall won't be bad, but their defense concerns me a ton still. They're in this division that is very difficult at the top of it, and like I said, most difficult schedule in football doesn't have me liking the Raiders' odds in 2019. In the NFC, we start off with the world-famous NFC East, the most popular division in the NFC. I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning the NFC East, but not only winning the NFC East, I have them winning the NFC in the regular season. I have them 13-3. I have them first seed in the NFC here. I think the Eagles are the most talented roster in football. I really don't see any holes from a top-notch offensive line to a top-notch defensive line. Carson Wentz is back and healthy, and I'm not counting on an injury here because he looks the most healthy he's been in a couple of seasons now. An upgraded running back group, an upgraded receiving core, a great head coach with Super Bowl winning experience. This team's ready to win now. and they're healthy, which is a huge thing, which they weren't in 2018. The Dallas Cowboys, I have finishing second, and I also have making the playoffs as the 5th seed in the NFC. The Dallas Cowboys, I had at 11-5. I moved them back one game just in case Zeke misses some period of time. I do think the Cowboys would be borderline missing the playoffs if Zeke is not there, because I think Zeke is different as a running back. He is their best player. He is their engine, and without him, I don't think they're a playoff team. But with him, for at least most of the season, they will make it. I think they're one of the most talented teams in football. Their defense is top 10 at the very least. They have a great linebacking core, an improving secondary, really underrated coaching with Chris Richard and Marinelli. And then offensively, I like what they did with the offensive coordinator change. Dak Prescott should have his best season yet. Amari Cooper is there. This is a loaded football team. Don't sleep on the Cowboys. Third place, I have the Redskins, and the Redskins fans especially have been upset with me with where I've ranked them and their record, but unfortunately I have them at 4-12, and this is mostly due to the quarterback position. They don't have Alex Smith to start the season like they did last year. That's where a lot of their victories came, and Alex Smith is underrated. I don't see any of their quarterbacks playing near that level. I think with the Trent Williams situation, I'm uncertain about the offensive line. They don't have any receiving options that really scare anybody, and their running back is probably going to be 1,000 years old Adrian Peterson. Their defense is pretty good, probably better than last year, but it's not great enough to carry a team. So 4-12, and this could be a team that takes their lumps this year that's a lot better next year. The New York Giants, 4th place in this division, worst team in the NFC. They're the least talented team in the NFC, and even though they have some bright young spots specifically on defense, I'm not a fan of Eli. I think he's the worst starting quarterback in the league. I don't see where they really got better offensively outside of the offensive line with Kevin Zeitler. I think Saquon will be phenomenal, but he can only do so much as a running back. And their receiving core, they're all slot receivers. I don't see how anybody is threatened down the field by this offense, which is going to hurt their overall productivity from the passing game. The NFC North is the division that this is going to be so difficult, and as you can tell by my records here, I'm uncertain with what's going to happen in this division. I think all these teams are so tight. I've said it once, I'll say it again. I think all of these teams can win this division, but the team I ultimately see winning this division is the one that won it last year. That's the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are a top 5 most talented team in football from an offensive, defensive perspective all around, and they have probably the best coach as well, which is a big deal within a division that's so tight from talent alone. Mitch Trubisky, I see taking a step forward in his second year under Matt Nagy. I like the offense. I don't love it. I think Montgomery's better than Howard, which will improve their running back position. And just overall, the chemistry of this offense should be a lot better in year number 2 under Nagy. Defensively, I don't think they'll be quite as good, losing Bryce Callahan and losing Vic Fangio and losing Adrian Amos, even though they brought in Clinton Dix. I think it's a really good defense, and if Khalil Mack can be as dominant as ever, they'll be top 5. I just don't know if they're going to be number 1 or number 2 this year, but the Bears, 11-5, winning this division. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. I also have them finishing with a bye as the 2nd seed in the NFC. The second place team here in the NFC North, I've flip-flopped between the Vikings and the Packers, so I don't see either of them making the playoffs, even though both of them could. I don't have them in there at this moment in time. Aaron Rodgers is phenomenal. I like what the Packers did this offseason in terms of their defense, but offensively, I don't know if they have enough weapons surrounding Rodgers to really be good enough in this tough division. And then defensively, it's still uncertain whether we're going to see that full potential of a top 10 defense or if it's still somewhere in the 20s. If this defense is a top 10 defense, they're certainly making the playoffs. If this defense is a top 20, they're not going to be making the playoffs. For the Vikings, they have the talent to make the playoffs. I like Kirk Cousins. I don't love Kirk Cousins. Their offensive line will be better. I think their offensive scheme will be better. A small thing, bringing in Gary Kubiak will be a big deal for Dalvin Cook, I believe. Thielen and Diggs are awesome. The defense is good, but it's not as good as it used to be. I think 9-7 sounds about right. They could make the playoffs. It wouldn't be surprising. I just don't have them there. And the 4th place team is the Lions. Even though I love the Lions and I've given them a ton of love this offseason, I don't see how within this division they're going to make it to the playoffs. I mean, they could win the division ultimately, but I don't trust Matt Patricia as much as I trust the other coaches in this division. Even a guy like Matt LaFleur, I think will show some promise. I don't know about Matt Patricia. Will he show that promise this year? Matt Stafford should be back and healthy. That's a big thing. Kerryon Johnson should have a breakout year. I like the defensive line a lot. This team has a lot going for it. I just don't know if they can make it this year. And 7-9 as a fourth place team is pretty good. The NFC South is arguably the best division in the league. You know, they have 3 teams that I think could all make the playoffs. The 4th team is the Bucs, which the Bucs I just don't see any way they make the playoffs this year, even with Bruce Arians, who's a great head coach. I love Bruce Arians. But Jameis Winston's way too inconsistent. He'll win you a game, but he'll also lose you a game. They have a lot of targets, but they kind of lost some of that offensive potential that they had last year, losing Adam Humphries and losing Deshaun Jackson. They still have Mike Evans. They still have Godwin. They still have Howard, which I think will have a huge season this year. But they have no running game. They really have not a very good offensive line that can protect Jameis. And the secondary is still awful. So I like some of the Bucs roster. I don't really love it, and it's certainly not good enough to do damage in the NFC South. Now, the other 3 teams is where it really comes down to. The Falcons, I love their offense. I think this offense could be the best in the league this year, even contending with the Chiefs. I love the coordinator change. This is the best offensive line Matt Ryan has had in quite some time. Julio, Sanu, Ridley in his second year, Hooper, Devontae Freeman is back. It's an explosive offense, and that's really the reason why I have them in the playoffs. I think Atlanta will score so many points that it's going to be difficult to stop them and difficult to beat them, so I have them as a wild card team in this division. I don't really trust their defense to win the division, though. That's why I have them finishing second and as a wild card team. Now, when it comes to who's winning this division, it comes down to the Panthers and the Saints. And I've said many times, I think the Saints are regressing this year. I don't love what I saw from Drew Brees at the end of last season. That includes into the regular season last year. The defense, I don't believe, is going to be as great as it was last year. I think it played over its head, and they were an extremely healthy football team last year, so I don't see that really adding up in 2019. I think they will be a winning team. I think they'll have a winning record. I just don't believe they'll make the playoffs. I believe in the Carolina Panthers. I have the Panthers winning this division this year, and it sounds crazy, and I know I'm going out on a limb saying this, but the Panthers have a really good roster. The offense, I think, could be top 5 this year. You look at how they finished last year, which was top 10, and Cam Newton had a bum shoulder. They didn't really have a good offensive line, and the receivers were very young, very inexperienced. Greg Olsen was on one leg. This year, best offensive lines Cam has ever had. You look at the running back, McCaffrey's an absolute monster and can carry an offense by himself. Then you look at the receiving group, and all the reports are that Curtis Samuel is the best player in training camp. DJ Moore is going to improve. They added Chris Hogan. They have Jarius Wright. They have a lot of depth. Greg Olsen is healthier. They have Thomas, who was in his rookie year last year, is going to improve in his second season. This offense is going to be a problem almost as much as Atlanta's offense is going to be. So Carolina is going to be very good offensively. They're going to score points. You look at their defense, I think it's better than the Falcons, which is why I give them the edge for first place. You look at that defensive line, you add McCoy, you have Quan Short, you have Don Terry Poe, you have Addison, you have Burns, who's looking like a stud in preseason. You add Trey Boston to the secondary. This is a really good team that's going way under the radar. If Cam Newton stays healthy, the Panthers are going to be an elite team in the NFC. So I have the Panthers winning the NFC South. I flip-flop back and forth with Atlanta and Carolina. I'm going with Carolina here. The NFC West is the division I'll probably get the most comments about. I love the 49ers. I'm sorry. I can't handle it. I can't control it. I love the 49ers. I love Kyle Shanahan. I love everything about them this season. I think they're going to have a breakout year. I understand Jimmy Garoppolo's not having the best training camp or the best preseason. So I'm going to have to answer those comments below, and you can leave them if you like. But Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe in him. I believe he is a franchise quarterback. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 guy, but I believe he'll be good enough within one of the best offensive systems in football to get it done. And it's not just Jimmy Garoppolo or Kyle Shanahan. Look at the rest of the roster. This is a top 10 offensive line. This is a running back group that's top 5 in the league, adding Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida. I know McKinnon's injured, but they have so much depth there. Kyle Juszczyk's a monster at fullback. You have George Kittle, who's arguably the best tight end in the league. A receiving group that's going way under the radar. And a defense with a defensive line that can get after the quarterback with Bosa and Ford and Buckner and Armstead. And then you add Quan Alexander to the linebacking group. And you have Richard Sherman and Jason Verrett at corner. I know they're a little banged up coming into this season, and there's questions galore about this team, but I am believing in them, and I am saying the 49ers win this division. Now, where does that lead the rest of this division? Because I said the Cowboys are making it. I said the Falcons are making it. So that means only one team in the NFC West is making it. Yeah, it does. The Rams are not going to make the playoffs this year, and I'm actually pretty confident in that because I'm not certain about Gurley. I don't think he's going to play that much this year. I think even when he does, he's probably going to get banged up and not be able to play the next game. There's just so much uncertainty there. And like Zeke, Gurley is the engine of the Rams. It's not Jared Goff. I don't trust Jared Goff to carry a team. I trust Gurley. Donald's awesome, but the rest of the defense is rather old. They don't have a lot of depth. Go down their depth chart. Trust me about that. And their defense wasn't really good last year until the NFC Championship game. I love the coaching. That's why I can't disrespect them too much. So I have them at 9-7. But the offensive line is worse. The defensive depth is worse. The running back position is up in the air. I just don't see how the Rams come back from that Super Bowl loss. And the whole McVay thing and that offense being figured out, we'll have to see how he adapts. That means the Seattle Seahawks are going to be the third place team in the NFC West. I'm going to get a ton of comments about this, so I'll address it now. Russell Wilson is only one player. He cannot carry an entire team. He cannot carry an entire team within a division that's very much improved. The Cardinals are better. The 49ers are better, and the Rams are still pretty good. Russell cannot do this time around. The defensive line is a lot worse. The pass rush is a lot worse. Jerron Reed is suspended for 6 games. Frank Clark is gone. Who's going to rush the quarterback? The offensive line is still below average. I love the running game, but the offense is relatively simple past the running game. They don't have much of a passing game, and when they fall behind in games, which is going to happen against a more difficult schedule this year, it's not going to be easy for them to come back without Doug Baldwin, counting on Metcalf, who's already a little bit banged up. Tyler Lockett's the only real reliable receiver, and the secondary lost their biggest playmaker in Coleman. So I like Pete Carroll. I like Russell Wilson. They're not enough to make the playoffs within a stronger NFC West in 2019. And the bottom team in the NFC West is still the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray will have some success this year. I think Cliff Kingsbury will see some success this year, but he's still a big question mark. This team still needs a lot of improvement, specifically up front on the offensive line. And even with talented players like David Johnson, Chandler Jones, Patrick Peterson, who, by the way, suspended early this season, they're just not quite good enough as a football team yet to really make and do damage within this tough NFC West. Now for the predictions in the playoffs, I'll start off with the AFC, go through the entire AFC, and then I'll go into the NFC. So for the AFC playoffs, we have wild card matchups of the Cleveland Browns versus the LA Chargers, the Cleveland Browns hosting the LA Chargers, and we have the Indianapolis Colts versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. So for the Cleveland Browns versus the Chargers, I have the LA Chargers going into Cleveland and beating the Browns in the wild card of the AFC. And the reason being is because I believe the Chargers will be healthier at this point in the season. I believe they'll have their full roster. If that's Melvin Gordon is there, if that means Derwin James is there, I just believe the Chargers will be hitting their peak at this point. I also don't know how the playoffs are going to impact the Browns as a team. They're very young. They don't have the experience that a Phillip Rivers and the Chargers do have. So I have the Chargers, the road warriors here, going into Cleveland and upsetting the 3 seed in the AFC and moving on to the divisional round where they'll have to play the Patriots once again. Then you look at the other wild card matchup. It's the Indianapolis Colts versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Colts would be hosting the Steelers here. I have the Colts winning by a field goal, 31-28 over the Pittsburgh Steelers in what would be an exhilarating, exciting offensive football game. I could see the Steelers pulling this out, but very much like the Chargers, I think if Andrew Luck is here and healthy, I think the Colts could be hitting their stride at this point in the season, which Andrew Luck teams usually do. So I have the Colts winning this game and moving on to the divisional round, where it will be the same Final Four from last season, which is unlikely. I realize that, but that's my predictions. The Patriots versus the Chargers and the Colts versus the Chiefs. Now, in the 2 versus 3 game, which is the Chiefs versus the Colts, I have it being a lot closer than last year, but I still ultimately have the Kansas City Chiefs knocking off Andrew Luck and the Colts. I think it will be difficult once again for Andrew Luck to go in the cold to Kansas City to knock off Patrick Mahomes. I think the Colts will put up a better fight, having it being 35-27 Chiefs in a high-scoring football game. I think Luck will move the football against the secondary, but Patrick Mahomes will just be too much for the Colts to handle. On the other side of the divisional round in the AFC, I have the Patriots facing the Chargers for the second year in a row. The Chargers and Phillip Rivers visiting New England, which has been pretty much the horror house for Phillip Rivers in his past, and I don't think anything changes here. Just like the Colts, though, I think it will be a lot closer than last season. I do have the Patriots winning by 6 here, 30-24. Ultimately, I think the Chargers, their beef up front will be a lot better against the Patriots' run game. I just think the Patriots, the way they match up defensively against the Chargers' offense, is going to be the decision maker for me putting the Patriots over the talented Chargers. So the AFC Championship will once again be the Patriots and the Chiefs. Now, this could not happen, but I see it happening. The Patriots will be hosting this game, which they didn't last season. I think the Patriots, like I said at the beginning, are more talented than they were last year. I do think the Chiefs will have a better defense than last year, but I don't see their offense being quite as good. I think the Patriots, once again, will win this game, and a lot of it will have to do with the home field. If the Chiefs host this game, they could win it. They very well could, but if the Patriots host it, I think it's going to be difficult for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to upset the Pats here. I think the Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl once again. I know it's crazy, but I just see it happening. They're too good. They're too talented on both sides of the ball. Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, I don't see a drop-off from them. So Patriots will win this game. It will be very close. It'll be a little bit lower scoring from some of their matchups. I think it will be 31-27. Still high scoring, but the defenses will have a bigger say in this game than you might realize. Now, in the NFC, we start off in the wild card round with the divisional matchup. It's the Carolina Panthers as the 3 seed versus the number 6 seed Atlanta Falcons. I have the Carolina Panthers. They're at home getting the edge here, 30-27. I think the Panthers, this will be an offensive game. I think defense won't have much say in this game. Maybe a turnover or 2 might be the difference here. Maybe a sack or 2 will be the difference. I think Carolina playing at home and Atlanta not playing in a dome could be the difference. I also believe a little bit more in the Panthers as a defense, so that's why I have the edge here going to Carolina. Moving on to the divisional round, they will play the Chicago Bears. Now, in the other wild card matchup, it's the Dallas Cowboys going to San Francisco because the Cowboys finished as a wild card team. But I do think that the Cowboys will be the favored team in this game, even if the 49ers win their division. And I think that's what ultimately happens. The Cowboys will win this game. I have it 24-20. Cowboys, I think their defense will give Jimmy G a little bit of fits. I think Shanahan will set him up in a good situation, but I just think the Cowboys are too much. I think they will be able to run the football in this game and establish their tone. And I think after this game, people will be looking at the Cowboys as a dangerous Super Bowl contender. 24-20 Cowboys, close game, but just the Cowboys are a little bit better and a little bit more talented. So the divisional round will set up a divisional matchup between the Eagles and the Cowboys in Philadelphia and the Panthers versus the Chicago Bears. So I have the Eagles beating the Cowboys. It will be very close, kind of defensive as well. I have it being 24-20 Philadelphia. I just think the Eagles have slightly more when it comes to the passing game, which I think will be the difference. Also, they'll be at home for this game, which is huge in Philadelphia. It's difficult to win in Philadelphia, especially in the playoffs. I believe in Carson Wentz. I believe in this offense. I believe in Doug Peterson over Jason Garrett. That's why they get the edge here. And on the other side of the NFC, it's the Bears versus the Panthers. This is going to be a great game. I actually have the upset here, and this is going to be crazy because people are going to be commenting like, you're nuts. You have the Carolina Panthers in the NFC Championship game. I actually do. I have the Carolina Panthers beating the Bears, going to Chicago and winning 23-20. Because when I look at this matchup, I see the Panthers kind of slowing down the Bears' rushing attack, and I see them putting the ball in Trubisky's hands. And I don't know if he'll have enough, and I don't know if he'll be able to outduel Cam Newton and this offense. I have the Panthers winning by a field goal at the very end of this game. So the Panthers will go to Philadelphia for the NFC Championship game, and I do have the Eagles winning. Sorry, this is where the Panthers road does stop. Panthers fans are probably shocked by me even putting them in the NFC Championship game, but I truly do believe they're the dark horse of this conference. Now, I have the Eagles in the NFC because I think they're the most talented team in football. I love the complementary aspect of their team when it comes to balance on offense and defense. They have very strong offensive lines and defensive lines. They have a very good quarterback, and they have a very good coach. I just like everything about their team. So the Eagles will defeat the Panthers, even though Cam Newton will put up a fight, and the Panthers will be close in this game, 27-20. But the Panthers just aren't quite good enough to knock off the Eagles, even though they did it last year in comeback fashion in the regular season. The Eagles will play the Patriots in Super Bowl 54, and it's going to be a rematch, even though it's going to be different quarterbacks. The teams will be slightly different, and what I see happening in this game that didn't happen in last game is the Patriots will actually be able to stop the Eagles in some form or fashion. But I do see Tom Brady having a great game once again against the Eagles secondary, which I think is ultimately the Eagles' weakness. I see Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl MVP with 3 touchdowns, throwing over 300 yards. Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman will have a big game in this game. I have the Patriots winning 31-27 over the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz will put on a pretty big show of his own against the Patriots' tough, stifling defense. But ultimately, the Patriots will be too much, and I think they will get their revenge and their redemption over the Eagles in this game. I flip-flopped on these two teams winning the Super Bowl all offseason, and ultimately, with the addition of Josh Gordon, if he is there, which is a question in its own right, I think the Patriots are too much, and they will win the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 54 and this NFL season. All right, guys, that's my predictions for the 2019 NFL season. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, spike the like button, subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more NFL videos just like this. Let me know your comments and your predictions below. Thanks for watching. It's been Mitch. Peace out.